including reforms which came into being in the policy shift that created, and the legal reform that created Agriculture Food Authority, the Kenya Agriculture Research and Agriculture and Livestock Organization, CARO. And also, through those programs, I interacted very highly with the then cabinet secretaries and permanent secretaries in the ministry. So I have quite a knowledge in terms of what the government operations, in terms of interaction. The programs also I supported, championed and supported the introduction of, for instance, the commodity fund, the coffee fund, which later became the commodity fund, the agriculture insurance and the livestock insurance. So I had quite a good interaction in that area. Since I left the World Bank in 2014, end of 2014, and went to consultancy. And in between those consultancies, mainly I was dealing with programs in the agriculture sector and evaluation and impact assessment. So I'm more rounded in terms of that professional side. Also, I had the opportunity in the last, let's say 2016, I had the opportunity to be appointed by His Excellency the President to serve in the coffee task force, which had to do, reviewed what the reforms which are necessary in the coffee subsector. So that, in a nutshell, Speaker, Mr. Speaker, sir, is my background.
Very good. Now we'll invite members to ask questions. I expect from you clear, succinct, precise, and concise answers to the questions that will be put to you. And there could be supplementary questions to main questions depending on how you answer. The first to go will be the Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I will ask Dr. Karanja. I want you to tell us what you think about this on the topic of genetically modified organisms, GMOs, where there's two arguments. One, that it would boost crop production in the country, but there's also another group that are worried about health concerns, and there is also another group that is worried about seed sovereignty for the country. We know that Kenya has spent billions of shillings at Kenyatta University, where they have a lab where they've been manufacturing GMOs year in, year out, even for other neighboring countries. So what would you do to implement the Biosafety Act and ensuring that it is implemented and that people are able to make an informed choice, or what policy you would champion should you be confirmed? Secondly, on the topic that's dear to me, the topic of pesticides, we have 267 banned pesticides available in Kenya, manufactured in Europe and North America, but not used in those countries, but are only manufactured for the sole purpose of export to African countries that accept it. This has been something that has been at the table, had a successful petition in Parliament, took it to the Ministry of Agriculture, and recently, even with your immediate predecessor, to try and ensure that those products are removed from our market because they have been confirmed to cause cancer. And people have even paid billions of shillings in North America in damages for developing cancer as a result of that use. What will you do? Can Kenyans have an assurance that you will save them? Thank you.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Thank you, the Deputy Speaker, for your two questions. On the GMO and the Biosafety Act, this is a topical issue. I would say it's a very topical issue. We know that in order for us to increase some of the interventions through the GMO can increase our productivity in agriculture. But as rightly as you say, there are concerns about food safety. So if I'm approved by this House and committee, I will look at the issue. I know already there are GMOs which are already being applied, especially on BT cotton. That is already in the country. What is really the issue is where there is food consumption. And we need to balance between the safety and what needs to be done. But I will go ahead and do what is supposed to be done, especially given the Biosafety Act. It has guidelines on how to go about it, in terms of laboring, in terms of making sure that the scientific evidence which is there is utilized to arrive at a decision which everybody in Kenya will be happy about. So I will go ahead and confront the issue, and given the evidence on the table, do what is required according to the Biosafety Act. On pesticides, which are banned from use, I know they have caused a lot of havoc in terms of even some of threatening some of even our exports. For instance, you find in horticulture exports, the residues, some of them are coming from these banned pesticides. I will not hesitate, if approved, to become the CS to ban them. I don't see why they should be in our list. We should not be taking poison. Kenyans should not be taking poison. Thank you.
Before the next questioner, from your intensive and extensive research, far and wide, are GMO food products safe for human consumption without qualification?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I would say some yes, but some no. So it's a mixed bag.
Such as?
For example, I know that some of the products we are using, like soya from those countries, are good GMOs. But the others which you need to be taken, especially where genetic engineering is used, you need to be a bit careful. So that is why we are saying the scientific evidence should be used. The Biosafety Act should be followed closely, because it has safeguards also, what we need to do and what we cannot do. Thank you.
Yes.
So should you be confirmed, I will definitely be at your office to ensure that those pesticides are banned. And I think I have several witnesses here. Thank you.
Yeah, okay.
Ichungwah?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
He's from Kiambu, but not from Alliance.
And not from Kikuyu, for sure. My name is Kimani Ichungwah. Dr. Karanja, I see you have a very impressive CV and a very rich background in agriculture. And you've spoken at length on your experience, even in the setup of when you were with the World Bank on AFA, the work you have done in the dairy sector, Coffee Research Foundation in Ruiru. I was waiting to hear if there is anything to do with livestock development, and wondering whether you have done any work around livestock development, because if you have taken time to read the Kenya Kwanza manifesto, it had a lot to do with increasing productivity right from the leather value chain on the livestock side. I was just looking at your CV and wondering whether you have any experience or anything you have done on the livestock side. Two, the extensive work you've done in the crop development area, whether in coffee or all the other areas I've seen from your CV, and very good papers you seem to have written in these areas. Other than consultancy and advising government from the World Bank, have you directly worked with the public sector, or in the public sector, except the 1.5 years in Tegemea? Not Tegemea is a policy research institute at Egerton University. And I saw many Kenyans, when you were nominated, purporting that you used to be the personal assistant to the former cabinet secretary, Mithika Linturi. Were you, or have you said you have worked with cabinet secretaries, were you Mithika Linturi's personal assistant at any point, or have you worked with him in the ministry? Two, you have definitely heard about the fertilizer subsidy program and the scandals that came out of it. I want to hear how you intend to handle the, what are called the cartels in Kilimo House, especially around the supply of fertilizer, how you intend to deal with that. Thank you.
Go ahead, Dr.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, and honorable member. Thank you, Majority Leader. Well, first of all, in terms of livestock development, yes, I have also some experience in livestock development. My thesis in the University of Nairobi, my MSc thesis was on cattle breeding. So that is an area. I also did a lot of work when I was in Tegemeo. Actually, I did work on reviewing the policies on dairy sector. So I'm well conversant with the livestock development. In my consultancy work, I've also worked in all the counties, especially in NASALs, evaluating programs managed by EU and other agencies in the livestock sector. In the public, you also inquired about how I've interacted with the public sector. I want to point out that I started, as I mentioned in the beginning, I started as an extension officer. So from the grassroots. I went all the way to become a planning officer, all the way to an economist in coffee research, and of late, as a member of the task force on coffee reform. So I have interacted in various ways with the public sector. And when I was in the World Bank, definitely I was interacting with the public sector, both at the higher level and the lower level in terms of operations. Being a PA, this one caught me off guard and surprising. For the record, Mr. Speaker, sir, and honorable members, I've never met the former honorable Minister for Agriculture. I've never been a PA.
Yes, Minority Leader.
I think so.
Have you answered all the questions?
No, there is one more, which the Majority Leader, Honorable Ichungwah, asked about the fertilizer subsidy and the cartels. And I would say that, yes, this is a very critical program, which, as you all know, members know, is the one, the food security, center of the food security program. And yes, there are cartels. There was issues the last season, in terms of the quality of the fertilizer, the distribution of the fertilizer. And I would handle, if approved by this committee and the House, this is one of the areas which I would like to work hands-on on to make sure that the farmers are getting the right fertilizer at the right time and the quality is okay. And the cartels, what happens is that cartels thrive where there is lack of competition and openness. I would make sure that there is openness and the integrity is maintained in the procurement of these inputs. Two is the issue about making sure that I have a governance structure which you guide the way fertilizers are procured, the way they are distributed, by having a multi-agency system which can check on some of these cartels and make sure that any untold thing, especially on quality, like involving KEBS at the beginning, so that we are sure that the fertilizer we are procuring is also in good quality. The other element is also to kind of remove the focus, too much focus on the central procurement. And this is what is being touted as you can go into what we call the voucher system, where the farmers can even go. Eventually, they can be able to procure the fertilizers from other agencies apart from NCPB. So there, the government doesn't have to procure. So you remove away the concentration too much in Kilimo House, so that farmers are able to procure from agro dealers eventually. Thank you.
Yes, Junet. You'll pass?
Yeah, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, I want to ask the nominee. And I looked at him very, very keenly, Mr. Speaker, very seriously. Mr. Speaker, the question that's worrying me is that the biggest problem in this country, in terms of when we approve people here in terms of governance, is the Ministry of Agriculture. There have been problems from the last 5-7 years I was in Parliament, from the previous ministers to the one that we approved here who are 30 cases, plus now the PhD holder who has arrived here. Mr. Speaker, I want this nominee just to prove to this committee how he is going to deal with these cartels and this corruption in agriculture. Because if we were to describe corruption in government in form of a home, the bedroom of corruption in government is Ministry of Agriculture. The rest are sitting rooms, servant quarters, and other small places. And you know, Mr. Speaker, having a PhD and dealing with corruption, having a PhD and dealing with corruption are two different things. So now that's one thing I want him to illustrate, even physically, if he can, how he's going to deal, how he's going to deal with corrupt people in that place. But more importantly, Mr. Speaker, how is he going also, because fertilizer is one of the biggest problems when it comes to corruption also. How are you going to work with the industries locally here to develop a fertilizer manufacturing program within the country here so that this issue of importation of fertilizer can end? So if you can prove those two things, for me, I'll be satisfied, because I know after 1 year, you will be walking jobless in the street, I can assure you. I can tell you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Honorable Junet, for your questions. I know dealing with cartels is a big issue, and there are many formats and very many forms. But if I am approved by this House and this committee, I'm saying I'm giving a notice on cartels. Notice that they will be out of business. In the fact that my background is that, and one of the principles which I hold very dear is integrity, not to be compromised. And the other principle I hold very dear is having the country's and the farmers' interest at first. So I will deal with them. We will do whatever it takes.
Utatembea na nyundo.
I will do whatever it takes, Mr. Speaker, to deal with them, putting systems in place, as I was said, governance structures, making sure that I involve all the agencies of the government. I'm sure the government of Kenya is capable of and have agencies which can deal with these cartels, and I will be in the forefront for that.
Nelson?
On the development of the fertilizer, it's a good one, because we need to develop the local industry. What is happening today is that most of the manufacturers we have are for bleeding. They are not for manufacturing of fertilizer. And it will be good to explore further whether they can, apart from bleeding, which is important, because we need to blend for coffee, we need to blend for tea, we need to blend for various crops. We need also to go a step further and do the manufacturing of the fertilizer. So if I'm approved, this is one of the agenda I would like to pursue.
Nelson Koich.
Thank you, Speaker. Daktari, there is a crisis in the tea sector. Tea prices at the Mombasa auction were on a